Hello,
Hey,
Melanie.
Andy.
You're glowing.
I'm always glowing. It's the beautiful sunshine of Lampeter.
Well, maybe. You
And we've
well?
got a happy, sunshiny story today, haven't we?
We have got a happy, sunshiny. There's a song there, isn't there?
Zacchaeus.
Well, then,
Zacchaeus was a very little man, and a very
I mean,
little man was he. Climbed to the
happy.
top of the sycamore tree for the saviour he wanted to see.
I wasn't thinking of that actually, but hey ho, there we are. I was
Well,
thinking,
it's what I think of every time I read this story. It's one of my earliest childhood memories of Sunday school, actually, is learning that song about Zacchaeus.
would you want to sing it again to us?
No, I'm sure people can rewind should they be desirous of hearing it stated
Actually,
rather than sung.
actually sing it this time.
No, but it is a wonderful gospel story, isn't it? Well,
Mhm.
account, occasion, because of course it's a real story, a true story about a
Yeah,
real person.
that's right. That's right. It's an excellent story. And it's almost the climax of these incidences we've had through these sort of mid-late chapters of Luke's gospel of Jesus's um, interactions with people. And interestingly, again, a point we were making, I think, last week, it's an outsider. It's someone who's a tax collector. He's wealthy, someone who would have been ostracized, and also I mean, you could say he was disabled. He was a very little man. He was short. So
And don't be heightist. We have short people in my family. You're not allowed to be heightist.
all these things that are potentially against him, and that's who Jesus seeks out, the outsider, and brings them in.
Because although we might be fond of Zacchaeus because we know his story from childhood, actually the people of his day would not have been fond of Zacchaeus, would they? Because he would have been taking their money and putting it in his own pocket and sending some off to Rome for the hated people who were oppressing them. So,
Yeah,
Zacchaeus not liked,
he's
not
a
popular.
he's as you say, he's a thief, he's a traitor, and wouldn't have had any prestige or honor amongst
No,
his community.
he's the opposite of the Pharisee in the last bit of Luke that we were looking at,
Yeah,
isn't it? As the Pharisee said, I'm not a thief.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not this and I'm not that. Look how good I am. Yet he was not sent home justified,
yeah,
whereas the tax collector was. And
yeah,
here we've got another tax collector who is sent home justified, if
yeah,
you like. And
yeah.
also, you were putting it in its context of the earlier chapters. A section we didn't see was the rich young ruler.
Mm,
And you've got the rich young ruler, who's got loads of money. He claims to be a follower of God,
hmm.
but when it comes to it, he can't give away his money.
No,
Here you've got Zacchaeus, nowhere near God. He's a tax collector and all those things. Also rich, but who does give away loads of his money. And I love the fact that the rich ruler finishes with that bit about the camel passing through the eye of the needle, about how hard it is for rich people. And here's Zacchaeus, the exception that proves the rule.
yeah, and I think you touch on a really vital point because we're talking about salvation, Jesus coming to this tax collector, and we say, oh, he gives away his money. Well, we have to be careful that the giving away his money is a response to Jesus's transforming power, not that brought it about, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, because it's not salvation by works. This is very much salvation by grace. You've got the doctrine of grace is through the centre of this whole
Yeah.
account, isn't it? Really. Um, But I just love that. Should we take it from the start? So we've established he's rich and he's a tax collector and whatnot. So you've got Jesus entering Jericho, where good stuff happens in Jericho, largely
Good.
speaking, in the New Testament, and he's passing through it. And there's Zacchaeus, and he's obviously he's heard about Jesus because he's curious, isn't he?
Yeah.
So he runs. Now that in itself is interesting, isn't
Sorry,
it?
what did you just say? I missed that.
Runs.
Runs.
He runs and he climbs a tree. Not
Yeah.
what you'd expect a rich man to do, is it?
But also notice verse 3, just earlier, he wanted to see who Jesus was and ends up getting a lot more than he probably bargained for. But there was that curiosity, yeah, maybe he's, as you said, maybe he's heard about Jesus, but he wants to see who Jesus is. And so, yeah, he runs up the tree and has all. So, also he's keen to see Jesus. So,
He is
running
keen.
up the tree.
And he puts himself in the right place to see Jesus, even though it's unconventional. He puts himself in the right place.
Yeah. And he throws his dignity to the wind because, running up a tree, probably for a bloke his age, one assumes he is, if he's chief tax collector, not very dignified to go and climb a tree. And he wants to observe Jesus. He wants to look, he wants to watch, but he doesn't want to encounter Jesus. And there's sort of another sort of shock for Zacchaeus. He wants to see Jesus, but doesn't necessarily want to encounter Jesus. I'm curious, I'm nosy, but I don't want Jesus necessarily speaking to me. So, there are all these obstacles to Zacchaeus coming to see Jesus or encounter Jesus, his job, his wealth, his height, his dignity, his honor. So I think the mountains that actually Zacchaeus climbs up are more than just that physical tree.
Mm. Not sure we can necessarily infer he doesn't want an encounter with Jesus. Because where do you get that from in the
Well,
text?
if he'd have wanted to see Jesus, he wouldn't have run up the tree. If he wanted to encounter Jesus, he wouldn't have gone up the tree. He goes up a tree, so he's above everyone else. He can look down and see what's going on. He doesn't necessarily want to physically meet Jesus. He wants to see,
Sure.
observe, curious, but
Yeah,
not necessarily encounter.
I'm not sure that you can make that final inference because he there's crowds there. We're told, aren't we, that there's crowds.
Mhm.
So he's not very big. He might not have been able to make it to the front of the crowds to encounter Jesus.
I'm
Anyway,
I'm sure he could have if he wanted to.
well, I think that's an inference that we can just say maybe that was the case or maybe not. Because you could also flip it the other way. He wants to see Jesus. Maybe at the latest tax collectors convention, they've all been talking about this Jesus who's been eating with them.
Maybe. And he just
And
wants to see.
maybe, yeah, maybe that's piqued his curiosity. So maybe it's a much more positive kind of thing that's going on here because the crowds are mentioned. So I think that's not insignificant. But anyway, we don't need to fall out over it because we're not told clearly in scripture, are we? So that means that we can disagree on that. So there he is up the tree.
Generous of you.
But it's a biblical. It's an important thing for when you're doing biblical interpretation, isn't it?
But I'd have
If
thought that, why does he go up the tree? Okay, he's a little bloke. But by the same token, you just watch a little child. They can soon squirm their way to the front of a crowd if they actually want to encounter something. You
Yeah,
know,
but I don't
they
think
can
we can
soon get their
necessarily
way
make that
there.
inference.
I, I
We what we know is that he's short and there's a large crowd and he can't see Jesus.
no, he
But you say to
can't.
me, if he could have got to the front of the queue by pushing through, then he probably would have. If he
Yeah, he
wanted
would have.
to argue the point.
He probably could have. So he goes up a tree and wants to stay at a distance. So
Yeah,
Jesus, it moves
but I
on
think
to the
he couldn't
point.
get to the front. That's my point. He couldn't get there, so he's climbed a tree.
So Jesus finds him,
That's the
which,
most important point
yeah,
is he's up the tree
and
and
Jesus
Jesus
finds him.
dots, doesn't he?
Yeah, and finds him.
Mm. And it's all the initiative of Jesus, and that's really
Exactly.
important.
Exactly. Jesus reached the spot, looks up, says to him, etc. Jesus finds Zacchaeus.
Mm. But his words are really interesting, aren't they? Jesus's words, because he doesn't.
They are.
He could just say, "Oh, Zacchaeus, come down and like an atta," but he
Yeah.
doesn't, does he? Come
No.
down, for I must
Must.
stay at your
Yeah.
house.
Yeah. Yeah. The divine must.
Yeah, I must.
Yes.
Well, he hurries down and he's happy to welcome Jesus. So something's happened there in Zacchaeus straight away, isn't it?
But also, Jesus knows Zacchaeus' name. So Jesus already knows Zacchaeus. I think that's amazing. Yeah, how does Jesus know Zacchaeus' name? Who knows? But he does know Jesus' name. And Jesus takes the initiative. The
Yeah,
divine must.
yeah. And my point was though, the change happens with Zacchaeus then at
Yes.
that moment, doesn't
Yeah.
it?
Yes.
He hurries down. He's happy. He welcomes Jesus.
Jesus.
So whether he was not keen before or whether he was keen before doesn't matter really, because what matters is there's Jesus. Jesus has spoken to him, and he's welcoming Jesus. The change
Yeah.
has happened on the inside
Yeah.
already.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah, but then the muttering.
Yes. And Zacchaeus goes on and fellowships, worships with Jesus and honors Jesus, etc. But yeah, you get the muttering. Not everyone is very happy with
No,
Zacchaeus
they
or
no, they're
with
muttering
Jesus.
a lot. He's
Yeah,
gone to be the guest of one who's a sinner. But notice, do you know what really struck me that I'd never really cottoned on to before is that Zacchaeus, he stands there. So Jesus has called him down out of the tree. He's come down. He's delighted to welcome Jesus. The mutterers have started muttering. And
mm,
right there and then, Zacchaeus says, half my possessions, Lord, I give to the poor. If I've defrauded anyone of anything, I will pay back 4 times as much. He hasn't even had so much as a sip of a cup of tea with
yeah,
Jesus, has he?
and
And he's already the effect of Jesus on his life is palpable.
yeah. The change happens, as you said, while the people are grumbling. Almost the opposition. If you're going to change, if you're going to follow Jesus, if you're going to welcome Jesus, you're going to get grumbling and muttering and moaning, whatever, opposition.
Mm.
But yeah, and then
Proof of God.
Zacchaeus goes on to show by action what has happened in his heart. He's going to stop exploiting people.
Straight away. And he judges himself severely, doesn't he? Because the paying back 4 times as much, that's the harshest penalty that could be levied on him.
Yeah,
You've got the rules there, Exodus 22:1 and 2 Samuel 12:6. Um, he could have said, well, do you know what, I'll just pay back the minimum of what's required. But
yeah,
no, his heart's overflowing with joy from being now in this relationship with Jesus that he takes the harshest penalty.
yeah, yeah. Amazing.
Yeah, he's changed.
Yeah. And
And it's
he shows the rest of us how to behave, how Jesus wants everyone to behave. Jesus comes, changes our hearts, and then we respond um, with our change in our behavior. And of course, as you said, the giving away, the generosity is also, back earlier in Luke 3, um, it's already been outlined, what Jesus wants from that particular group of people, how he wants them to behave. And then, of course, it ends with that most famous verse. What an amazing ending that Jesus says, "For the Son of Man came to seek and to save the lost."
Because you couldn't really get much more lost than a tax collector in Jesus's day, could you?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And the reference to son of Abraham at the end of verse 9, um, today salvation has come to this house because this man too is a son of Abraham. A shepherd has gone after a sheep and brought them back into the home. And that's what Jesus came to do, to bring the sheep who've been without a shepherd back home safely into the fold.
We're back into that Ezekiel 34 territory, aren't we? Jesus being the good shepherd gathering up the sheep. And it's he's a son of Abraham now, probably before he was genetically a son of Abraham, because I don't think we should infer that he was necessarily a Gentile. He's more likely to be Jewish. So
Mhm.
in that sense, he was a son of Abraham, but now he truly is because he's got that faith of Abraham now, trusting in God. And what
and
a wonderful picture of grace.
and shows Zacchaeus becoming a member of the people of God
Mm.
by change of heart, followed by change in behavior. The story for us all. How do we become a member of the church? How do we become a member of God's family? How to become one of the sheep within the fold, where we allow Jesus to change our hearts, and that will change our behavior, hopefully.
Yeah, there should be proof, shouldn't there? There should be some change, um, because it's the grace of God. And do you want to hear what J.C. Ryle says about the grace of God?
I was waiting for Mr. Ryle, yes, Bishop
Yeah,
Ryle.
well, here he goes. He
Thank
says,
you.
"It is impossible with such a passage as this before us to exalt too highly the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ. We cannot maintain too strongly that there is in him an infinite readiness to receive and an infinite ability to save sinners. Above all, we cannot hold too firmly that salvation is not of works, but of grace. If ever there was a soul sought and saved without having done anything to deserve it, that soul was the soul of Zacchaeus. Let us grasp these doctrines firmly and never let them go. Their price is above rubies. Grace, free grace, is the only thought which gives men rest in a dying hour. Let us proclaim these doctrines confidently to everyone to whom we speak about spiritual things. Let us bid them come to Jesus Christ just as they are, and not wait in the vain hope that they can make themselves fit and worthy to come. Not least, let us tell them that Jesus Christ waits for them and would come and dwell in their poor sinful hearts if only they would receive him. That's grace, isn't it? That's what Jesus does. We're not worthy. He had all the chance of getting into heaven as a camel going through the eye of a needle, did Zacchaeus? Like zero chance. But with God, anything is possible.
Yeah, yeah. And did you notice, Melanie, that the psalm is on exactly the same theme? Psalm 32, penitential psalm, um, about acknowledging my sins before God and God's forgiveness of our guilt. Um, Blessed is the one whose transgressions are forgiven, whose sins are covered. Blessed is the one whose sins the Lord does not count against them, and in whose spirit is no deceit. So the psalm this Sunday goes really well with the story of Zacchaeus.
Absolutely. And do you want a little mini rhyme as we finish?
Go on
He
then.
says, he says, hospitals discharge many cases as incurable, but there are no incurable cases under the gospel.
Excellent.
So a
Enjoy
good, a good,
preaching on it.
yeah, a good evangelistic one for us to do, and a good one on the grace of God. So,
Indeed.
yeah, it should be a joy to preach.
Enjoy it.
And you,
Bye.
bye.